We need to talk.
Okay. Hi everyone. So today we're gonna watch we're not gonna watch the whole thing, but we're gonna watch part of a video by the YouTube channel Psychology with Dr. Anna. Um the video is called Apparently My Political Views Are Confusing to Some of You. And I wanted to watch this because I watch her sometimes and she generally has some interesting content, but she made this video and it made me kind of realize she doesn't really know anything about what, or at least what she doesn't really know much about politics. She doesn't really know what she's talking about in this field. So we're gonna go through it, and we're not gonna watch the whole thing, like I said, because it's just gonna take too long. So let's see the intro, then we'll skip around.
When I first started this channel almost 5 years ago, I was a die-hard liberal. I unironically called myself a social justice warrior and had
Based.
very strong biases against anyone who disagreed with me, basically. And over
That's
the last
fair
2 to
enough.
3 years, I think it's become increasingly obvious that my political views have shifted. I mentioned about a year ago that I no longer identify as liberal, and
What she says, because I kind of looked at this the other day.
a conservative or a Republican. Though I will say I have been agreeing more and more with people who are center right on issues like how woke culture is censoring discourse, the fact that we should be able to agree to disagree with each other, the merits of taking responsibility for ourselves.
Okay, so she's just um falling into a right wing framing. Like, what did she said? We're not allowed to disagree with each other now. Hold on, let's go back. I want to see that again.
Though I will say I have been agreeing more and more with people who are center right on issues like how woke culture is censoring discourse, the fact
Woke culture is censoring discourse. So where do we see examples of that? Because I haven't seen examples of that. The only time I've seen examples of discourse being censored recently or as of late is from the right. You know, do you think it's odd that the Trump administration, which is now controls the FCC, launched an investigation into CBS because they didn't like how they cropped the Kamala Harris interview? Like they thought maybe CBC, I think it was CBC, might have edited it in a way to look more fair to Kamala Harris, or how the Trump administration's FCC appointee is what did he, oh he like put they're investigating NPR because of, I think it was NPR or some news organization because of how they've covered the crackdown on immigration. That seems more like a censoring of discourse than anything I've seen from the left. Like I actually don't know what she's referring to. Like where on the left are they censoring or like is discourse being censored? I don't know.
that we should be able to agree to disagree with each other, the
It is the left the one who's not able to handle agreeing to disagree. I mean, I'll just defer to what I said 5 seconds ago. I think it's more the right. Like, okay,
merits of taking responsibility for ourselves.
that's just projection. I don't know where. Like, what's that? Is that an allusion to like welfare queens or something? Like, what is that? Who on the left is saying we shouldn't take responsibility for ourselves? I don't know what that means. She's got to be more specific. Um, because who on the right takes responsibility for themselves? Like that's they'll just be like, oh, I didn't get into college. It's got to be because of discrimination against white people or something. I don't even know.
And I gotta tell you, conservatives have always been way kinder to me when they disagree with me on something than liberals have. And even when
Really? Well, first of all, what do you? I mean, I wouldn't be kind if I heard somebody like, liberals just don't want to take responsibility for themselves. Like I'd be like, who the hell is this person? I'd be annoyed. But like I don't know what she mean. Like maybe that comes from a place of privilege. I don't know. Like conservatives want to like just like kill like trans people. Like a lot of conservatives just would be fine with like just killing trans people. I don't know where this civil discourse comes from. That's fine, I guess.
when they're not kind, when a conservative disagrees with something I said, the reaction is usually just, haha, you're stupid. But when a liberal disagrees with me, it immediately goes into, you are a terrible person. You are so immoral. It gets
Well, yeah, because liberals actually stand for things. Conservatism is just about like trolling people and like you know punching downward. Like liberals do actually stand for something, and when you stand for something, it hurts a lot more when people disagree with you. That's just being genuine. That's just I don't want to say human nature, but that's just what that is.
real personal real fast, and that alienates people even further from the party that you are associated with. Y'all did this to Lacey Green, you did this to the woman from the Young Turks, and now you're
Okay. All right. So that's a red flag. So who she's referring to? Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks. Um. Yeah. I guess we'll have to discuss this. So Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks. Um. So Anna Kasparian is the co-host on the main show of the Young Turks, along with Cenk Uygur. Um. She's been there forever, and she's worked her way up from, which is my understanding, to being co-host. Um. But yeah, so forever she's been a progressive. Like she supported Bernie Sanders in his presidential runs, along with Cenk Uygur, ostensibly, and but she kind of took a turn after a couple of events. Apparently she got assaulted by a homeless man, and that made her more um, I don't know, right wing on homeless issues, which I guess is a whole thing. But she got in a lot of heat because she said that she got mad that people were referring to her as, or were saying, using the term birthing person to describe someone, rather than like woman. And she's like, I don't want to be called that. Although I don't know if anybody was calling her that. I think it's more just a term like for descriptions in like medical literature, right? People like people who can give birth might be more relevant in like streamlining certain treatments than like woman, because trans people exist. So there's that. But I don't know. From there she kind of, I think she just kind of was didn't like getting criticism, so it pushed her further in the right-wing direction, which I guess, to be fair, Dr. Anna here is talking about like the need to be on a team. Um yeah, so then she went further in the right wing direction. Like she went on like Ben Shapiro's show and like Glenn Beck's show, and then Megyn Kelly's show, and then she wrote a Substack article called like "Why I Left the Left," which is comical because a lot of like people on the Young Turks have left the left, have done this same move and gone to the right just to make money. Which maybe she's doing that, because they've taken money from like places recently, the Young Turks. Um, but yeah, and then recently, the entire Young Turks. Well, Cenk was saying that like he thinks the homeless, or yeah, like homeless people started the fires in Los Angeles in the recent fires, which was like total right wing talking points because they want to round up homeless people, so of course they're gonna blame the homeless people, and not climate change. So yeah, all around we could debate the merits, or we could debate all day as to why like they're making this rightward pivot, but to for Dr. Anna here to defend Anna Kasparian and pretend she's the victim is not true.
one specific type of economic system. I believe inequity is always going to exist as long as people are not dealing with their innate selfishness and greed. And the people who have the most power and control will always try to make sure that they have more resources than the people who don't. And
I mean, yeah, but like you can try to systematize that so it's not like as big of an issue. Like that's why in America there's the checks and balances in government. Um, so like, one branch doesn't become too powerful, or like the state federal government dynamic. Um, Even like communism does that, like collective ownership of the means of production, right? Like that's so, one person doesn't have like a monopoly on the means of production and get too much power and or produce too much or something.
And for that reason, I find terms like late stage capitalism to be just really misinformed. And a lot of the things that people blame capitalism for are not actually caused by capitalism. Like people will often tell me that I have like a very hustler mentality, always overworking myself because of capitalism. And I always have to clarify that that's not the case. I have this mentality because it was passed down by my parents who actually grew up in a communist regime,
Why would they pass that down to you? That sucks.
who were working 6 days a week. And then also on the seventh day, you had to do hands on work during the regime. And this concept of like, you owe the collective your work, you have to put in as much as possible, that's very much a communist concept as well. So
Source? I don't know, at least when she says you owe the collective as much as possible. I don't I haven't read any communist literature that's ever said that. I mean, I think there's like, I mean, they talk about the relationship between the collective and like the individual, like, an association in which the free development of each is necessary for the free development of all, right? Like, but I don't like, that's very much not giving the collective as much, or giving as much as you can to the collective. Like, I don't even know, like, what's that? How does that like register in our brain? Like, what's the like just an ideology based on like not like just being a useful idiot or useful to the state, not that, and not like pursuing your own passions. Like that sounds like more like fascism, right? Like in communism, I think you have to like if you have like more ownership of like the means of production and over your labor, you're not like, you can't be forced to work like 16 hours in a factory, and you can like go pursue passions because you have a say in your labor, and they can't like hold like having to pay for food behind a paywall. Like they can't hold that as like leverage against you. So I don't know where her understanding of communism comes from, but whatever.
So a lot of the times when I hear people complaining about capitalism or saying things like late stage capitalism, I'm like, have you ever spoken to somebody that was part of a socialist communist regime? Because a lot of the things that you're complaining about and attributing to capitalism also existed there. And recently there was someone who left a comment on my video saying,
I mean, yeah, I'm sure not like the Soviet Union or Eastern Europe. I mean, they did some good things, but yeah, they also strayed from the mission of communism, right? Like people use the term like state capitalism because like the state kind of owned the means of production, and then like bureaucracies delegated it to the people, like, which, yeah, that's not great, right? That's we they could have done better. Lenin could have like not disbanded the workers councils or whatever, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's like, yeah, that's still like, so that's not really like ideal, but I wouldn't say that like now you can't be like, oh well, that means communism doesn't work. That was just that.
saying that I believe we should be able to agree to disagree with people, essentially because I'm like trying to pander to conservative family members I have. I don't have any family members who vote conservative who voted for Trump. You guys actually know.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna have to talk about the political compass. Um, so I honestly don't think the political compass test is a great way to analyze politics generally. I think maybe on like a like personal, like interpersonal level of analysis, maybe like you can fish out like how to navigate politics from it, from like the questionnaire, but I don't know. It's very like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of times like movements in politics are just based on like inertia and like an already snowballing like movement, and you kind of just have to attach yourself to that, like, and do with it what you can. You can't just like, it's not like everybody's individual beliefs coming together. It's more just like building what's already there, what came before you. But with that being said, the political compass test itself is kind of ridiculous because like I don't know what like authoritarian left is. Like I think that's just like a straw man of communism. Like, there were elements of the Soviet Union that were authoritarian, therefore communist is authoritarian, and I don't know. So it like that would be my guess anyway. I don't actually know. But yeah, I think like, yeah, I don't know what like authoritarian right or authoritarian left is, or like I don't know what libertarian right would be.